If you are not a speaker, please turn off your audio and video so that we do not make mess out of it. And if you have questions, please do post them in the chat, both the technical ones that will be replied by someone in the background, and also content questions, please post them in the chat. This is a very short event, 1 hour, and probably we will not be able to respond all the questions, but we will for sure collect them and try to get back to you on our newly set up webpage, offshorecoalition.eu. So let's start. Why an offshore coalition? We know that for achieving the climate and energy targets, Europe needs to access all possible resources. And offshore is an important resource. But we also know that building energy infrastructure in the marine environment is not without risk. The marine environment is already very busy and deteriorated, and therefore we need to find solutions that enable us to build the infrastructure that is needed to reach net zero, and at the same time conserve and enhance nature as much as possible. So I think it is a very timely launch today, 2 days before the offshore strategy is published by the Commission, and the signatories, the founding members, have decided to come together and work to look at the solutions that are needed for this offshore expansion and for nature protection. You can see here the 18 founding members of the Offshore Coalition. They represent the broad NGO sector, society, with many different organizations, as well as the wind industry, including wind developers and manufacturers, and of course, grid operators, transmission system operators, because anything that is done at sea also needs to be connected one way or the other to send to the land and to the centers where consumption of electricity and energy takes place. These founding members do not generally work together in a systematic way, and the coalition is an incredible opportunity to access knowledge from different sectors to find the solutions that are good for both the energy deployment as well as nature protection. So what are the aims of the Offshore Coalition? These aims are based on 3 main pillars. They are plan together, plan in line with marine conservation objectives, and plan ahead. I would like to start with the last one, plan ahead. We know where we are going. We are going to net zero. We are going towards full decarbonization. It's not possible to only plan for the next 6 years, or next 10 years, or next 15 years. We need to plan all the way to full decarbonization, because only this will give us the confidence that the steps that we do today do not jeopardize the following ones that need to follow. And therefore, we need to plan together, because we are faced by multiple challenges. It's not only the energy transformation that of our economies that we have to tackle, but also ecosystem deterioration and biodiversity protection. They have to plan hand in hand so that no one is developed at the expenses of the others. With the coalition, we set up a standard of a voluntary, integrated planning that combines generation, transmission, and nature protection, so that we can optimize across the 3 dimensions. And very important is that this coalition is fully aligned in recognizing the value of planning with a sea basin approach. What does it mean? Today, we develop projects in national waters, we plan, and we get permits within the national borders. But nature doesn't really recognize political borders. Nature is based on ecosystems that are linked to space in a completely different way. And of course, if we take the basin approach, we can optimize not only the economic and the technological options, but we can also optimize how do we protect nature and do compensatory measures where they are most effective. So the coalition will be working on a number of topics, and I would like to name a few of them. Data and modeling is definitely one of the most important steps that we have already in the coalition starting to deal with. In particular, data. There is a huge amount of data everywhere, but accessing data is difficult. Data comparison is challenging. Data is being collected in many different ways. And so the coalition wants to make a coordination effort to understand what is the data that is available there, what are the data gaps, and therefore fill these data gaps, and develop standardized data collection protocols so that from a certain point in time, very soon, data will be collected in a systematic way, in a coherent, equal, systematic way across different geography, so that it can be shared and can be at the benefit of all, both project developers and environmental organizations. The marine spatial planning are well underway under the supervision of DG Mare and national governments. We want to help this process, but also provide input to this process so that these marine spatial plannings get a longer time perspective, are based in increasingly on this basin approach, and cross-borders collaborations are intensified. Moreover, the concept of the carrying capacity of the seas is a concept that is not new, but is not really operationalized in the European context. And the coalition members will discuss how can we make this one of the principles, one of the guiding principles for future activities and future planning. Of course, there is no infrastructure that is deployed in any environment, let alone the marine one, which is without risks. Understanding what are the risks and also the opportunities of different type of infrastructure is fundamental to overcome them. So the coalition will work on assessing and identifying risks and opportunities and trying to develop solutions. By doing this, of course, we will also look at how to minimize cost and impacts of infrastructure in deep seas. The Offshore Coalition is now starting its activity focusing on the North Sea and the Baltic Seas. But developments are happening already in other areas, in other geographical areas, in the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic, and also in the Black Seas. We hope that what we learn in this first step can be of support and can stimulate activities also in the other regions. So I hope that we will be working with all of you, and now I would like to pass the word to some of the founding members for some testimonials. And I will call them one by one. And so let me introduce them now. Giles Dixon, the CEO of Wind Europe, with whom we started this work a long time ago. Antonia Leroy, Head of Ocean Policy at WWF. Gerald Kendler, Head of Asset Management at Amplion, one of the transmission system operators here. Ulrich Strittberg, Vice President, Head of Regulatory Affairs, Ørsted. Ariel Brunner, Senior Head of Policy at BirdLife Europe. And Alfred Hoffman, Vice President, Portfolio and Business Development at Vattenfall Europe. And now let me start with Giles. Giles, please put your video on, and all the others, when I call you, please also put your video on. You have 2 minutes for your statement. Giles.
Thank you very much, Antonella, and good morning to everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Antonella and everybody else involved in the coalition, many congratulations and many thanks. This is an excellent and crucial initiative. Europe will only deliver on climate neutrality and its biodiversity objectives if industry and civil society work together. And this coalition gives us a basis, a foundation to work together on all of the issues that you have just described, Antonella. And the wind industry is delighted to be part of it. Let me just outline the wind industry's perspective on this. First of all, offshore wind is going to be a crucial part of Europe's energy transition. The European Commission's decarbonization scenarios for 2050 show that offshore wind will be over 1/4 of Europe's electricity consumption by 2050. It will be the single largest part of Europe's electricity production and consumption by 2050. Offshore wind will also be a very important part of the just energy transition. Offshore wind brings jobs and economic activity to mainly coastal regions around Europe, regions that have struggled in recent years with the relative decline of other industries such as shipbuilding, offshore oil and gas, coastal areas where, of course, fewer people are working in the fishing industry than used to be the case. There are today 77,000 people working in offshore wind across Europe. If national governments across Europe deliver on their plans for the expansion of offshore wind by 2030, that number will rise to 200,000 people working in offshore wind, and the contribution that offshore wind makes to EU GDP will more than double as well. But of course, we can only expand offshore wind if we're doing this hand in hand with environmental and biodiversity interests. And so the wind industry is delighted to be joining forces with civil society and with the TSOs in this energy and nature coalition. It's absolutely essential that the expansion of offshore wind should be done in such a way that we keep our seas healthy, clean, and productive.
Thank you very much.
Harmonious coexistence between the industrial interests and the environmental interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giles. And now, can I call Antonia, please?
Thank you, Antonella. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Antonia Leroy. I'm the head of Ocean Policy at WWF European Policy Office. But today I'm speaking on the behalf of the whole office, Climate and Energy and Ocean team, as well as our network. So yeah, we believe the world we live in today faces two major crises, climate change and biodiversity collapse. One cannot be addressed and won't be solved without the others. On one hand, we have to limit global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees as set up in the Paris Agreement. In this context, we think the EU must reach climate neutrality by 2040, thereby eliminating all fossil fuels and achieving 100% renewable energies as soon as possible. In this perspective, we think increasing offshore renewable energy is essential for achieving a climate neutral Europe. On the other hand, we have the ocean, which play a key role in regulating climate change, but today the resilience of our oceans is clearly compromised. The biodiversity in our sea declines, and most of our marine ecosystems are at risk. In Europe, we have failed to reach good environmental status in our seas, mostly due to pollution and overexploitation. We have not delivered on our effective spatial protection targets either. It is important to recognize that European sea counts among the most intensive use in the world. That is why the expansion of offshore energy must be done in a way that protects our ocean and its ecosystem. The climate and biodiversity crises are intertwined and must be addressed jointly. So ocean and energy people must therefore work together hand in hand. We must break the silos and find synergies. So that's why we are very happy for WWF to be part of this coalition and to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, which bring various sectors together and the industry as well as NGO. We think this is a crucial initiative for us. And we hope this coalition will provide an effective platform to support constructive and open dialogue with other stakeholders involved and to explore avenues for synergies between our fight for climate and biodiversity. So thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you very much. And now Gerald Kendler from Amprion, you also have 2 minutes.
A big thank you first to you, Antonella, RGI, and all the founding members to make this unique initiative happen. Offshore wind generation, as Giles pointed out, will be the key to reach the climate goals and also the corresponding grid to bring the power to the load and to interconnect the countries is very important. Amprion, as a TSO active in the North Sea, is very proud to be a founding member of the Offshore Coalition. It is a unique chance to connect and interconnect between each other and to work together on sustainable offshore expansion together with NGOs, with policymakers and the wind industry. We are very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Ulrich from Ørsted, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for organizing this and for being able to launch this declaration today, Antonella. So from Ørsted's point of view, this is a very, very good day, marking that on the one hand, we are a group of organizations that all very much agree to the overall target of meeting the climate goal of net zero in Europe by 2050 or sooner, on one hand, and on the other, doing that while ruining nature makes absolutely no sense. I suppose battling climate change will in itself be one of the most important measures to protect biodiversity, to protect natural environment. And this group of people, as we see it, this group of organizations will come together to discuss, to exchange, first of all, mobilizing the enormous amount of knowledge, information that we have jointly. Just bringing that on the table as you present, Antonella, will in itself enlighten us. Secondly, use that information to highlight the knowledge gaps. Where is it that we will need to get more information? Also discussing and sharing experiences on what it is that can be done in limiting the environmental impact from developing offshore wind. And finally, and probably the most important, looking ahead, planning ahead, seeing where this can go, and together finding solutions in close dialogue. I sincerely hope that this is a signal that will also be followed up later in the week with the much awaited offshore renewable energy strategy from the European Commission. I hope the way I've felt that we are able to have dialogue, have a trustworthy exchange, is a signal and a beacon for how we have to cooperate in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now please, Ariel from BirdLife.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to get on board this initiative, to see it really starting, because we've been among the initiators of it. And I think it is trying to do something that is really, really important. We are facing a huge challenge. We need to be honest with ourselves about it. Developing the sort of rapid and gigantic amount of infrastructures that we need for the energy transition in an environment like the marine environment that is already, frankly, agonizing from an ecological point of view because of the damage inflicted by overfishing and pollution and other human activities, is really difficult. It's very difficult to get right. That said, I am convinced that if we are taking it seriously, getting honest about the problems, using the best available science and best available technology, and doing sound planning, and doing the sound planning early on and sticking to it, I think that we can actually deploy a lot of offshore wind that can really help us with the decarbonization of our economy, while avoiding further destruction of marine environment, and maybe even contribute to the restoration agenda, because to be honest, at this point, it's not so much about avoiding damage, it's really about restoration, because the situation is so bad. It's really exciting to see industry players taking it seriously and boldly. I think there is a shared agenda. We have seen in the past mistakes done on land being captured by the people who want to stop the energy transition. This should not happen again at sea. We need to work together, and we need to take climate change and biodiversity seriously and solve the problems at the same time. I really hope that we can have on board not just industry and NGOs, but also authorities, both at national level and at the EU level, which in the past have sometimes thought that if you just ignore problems, they will go away. I think we've seen many times again that problems go away only if you try to solve them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ariel, and thanks for this challenge that you add to the many that we have to deal with. And now, Alfred from Vattenfall, please, your 2 minutes intervention.
Yeah, thanks, Antonella. And good morning, everybody. Really a pleasure and a unique opportunity for me to also talk here at the launch of the Offshore Coalition. Well, we all know that we ourselves, also the whole humankind, mankind, is impacting the nature, the climate, and of course all of our fellows. And therefore sustainability for myself, but of course also for Vattenfall, is core, and it is part of overall Vattenfall strategy. Our efforts within growth and renewable energy will be key to achieve our purpose of enabling fossil-free living within one generation, which you might know by now is our main slogan and the purpose which is energizing us going to work day by day. Growth in green electricity generation does not suffice, however. We want to deliver full sustainable solutions in a life cycle perspective, and this means we have to deliver solutions in a socially, environmentally, and economically responsible way over the whole lifetime of our wind farms. Already today, Vattenfall is active in biodiversity research, mainly associated with hydropower and wind power, with the overarching aim to better understand our impacts and to find the most suitable mitigation measures. And one of those examples of our engagement in R&D to reduce and limit our impact on marine environment is the European Offshore Wind Deployment Center, which you might also know as Aberdeen Offshore Wind Farm. There, one of the projects is collecting data, hopefully then supporting our platform here at a later stage, on seabird flight patterns and behavioral responses to offshore wind turbines during the breeding season with the aim to understand the seabird collision and avoidance behaviors. This scientific research program will still continue its work throughout 2021 and beyond. We believe joint work with stakeholders is needed to develop full sustainable solutions which serve all three pillars of sustainability, which is the environment, social, and economy. This offshore coalition is a promising platform to develop more than just a renewable megawatt. It hopefully creates a sustainable renewable megawatt. Thank you so much, and looking very much forward to our cooperation going forward.
Thank you very much. So now you will see again these speakers after the reaction from the representative of the Commission and the Cabinet of Kadri Simpson. I'm very happy to have them. Before I introduce them one by one, I would like to share with you, all of you that are in this call, is that getting to this point took us 6 months of solid work. It is not easy to come together and work as such a diverse group, but that's the only way that we have to find solutions that are sustainable and long-lasting. So I want to congratulate again the willingness of all parties to listen to each other, learn from each other, and then really look for ways to continue this work. And now let me introduce you our next speakers. We have Veronica Manfredi. She is Director of Directorate C of DG Environment. Felix Leinemann, Head of Unit of DG Mare, and Lo Chapuis, Cabinet Expert in Kadri Simpson Cabinet. I thank all of you for joining this event. And let me say that we have invited you very, very late, actually mid of last week, which is, I think, a nightmare. And maybe a virtual event is the only way that made it possible. So we start with Veronica. Veronica, please, what do you think about this coalition, and what are your reactions to this? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Battaglini. Let me tell you that I'm really happy. I mean, listening to you, listening also to the enthusiasm that sparks from the intervention of all the speakers. I think you are presenting in action the kind of win-win opportunities that the College of Commissioners is right now discussing and would like to create with the strategy that will see the light in 2 days' time, and for which all the people that are participating in the panel this morning have been contributing. And I would like to pay special tribute, of course, to my colleague Lo Chapuis, who is working in the cabinet of the Commissioner Simpson, so the chef de file commissioner, for having had a very inclusive approach throughout the elaboration of this very important document. We seize very much all the challenges which have been described by the previous speakers. We need to act fast and very well. And when I say very well, it means looking at the entire life cycle of how we do things, from the design of the infrastructure, from where they're going to be put, indeed in an environment which is already very fragile. Our seas are not in good status. We will not reach good status as required by the Marine Strategy Framework Directive by the end of this year. We know that we need at the same time to work on all strands, decreasing pollution, securing a more sustainable exploitation of resources. So this comes indeed as a very big challenge. Yet we feel, for the same reasons that you are explaining this morning, that by uniting, by connecting the dots and putting together the right industry representative, the right representative of civic society and protection of the environment, I would say also the right representative of, consumers' interest, all the designers, all the people that need to be together, the innovators, we can get there. But it's indeed a very big challenge, and I think that your coalition goes to the heart of where we need to go. Please, my other message is, bear in mind that our member states will need very much our help. Already by March 2021, they have to present their maritime spatial planning, and this is a very imminent deadline. They have the deadline of the National Recovery Plan that potentially offers a fantastic opportunity to put this type of development high in their agenda, and they are updating all their programs of measures to better protect the sea. It's inserting the right narratives and the right win-win co-creation in their plans that we can get it right. Allow me also to tell you that I'm very pleased to give you the scoop that together with the offshore wind communication, we will be able to adopt a specific guidance for the development of offshore wind energy in line with the Natura legislation, so Birds and Habitat Directive, etc., precisely in an effort to provide the best of our assistance to guide this very much needed effort. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much. And now, please, Felix, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello, and good morning, everyone. I think I'm speaking here on behalf of the DG for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, and of course, we welcome this initiative of the coalition very much. This coalition is very much in line with the participatory approach that we have put forward in the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive. And I'm certainly not revealing any secrets when I say that spatial planning will also be a backbone of the upcoming Commission Offshore Renewable Energy Strategy that is going to be published this Wednesday. Because it's a key tool to anticipate changes and to prevent and mitigate conflicts, while it also creates synergies between sectors and protects national resources, natural resources, sorry. Maritime spatial planning has the goal to ensure access to maritime space for different sea users, but also the coexistence of these users while safeguarding the environment. And Veronica already mentioned it, member states are expected to submit their maritime spatial plans to the Commission by the end of March next year. Then the Commission will analyze all these national plans and submit a report to the European Parliament and the Council that will outline the progress made in implementing the directive in 2022. And inputs from organizations like your coalition will be very welcome in this framework. Of course, national maritime spatial plans have to be fully aligned with the biodiversity and climate objectives. And we will also encourage coherence and alignment of these plans with the national energy and climate plans in order to ensure the long-term development of offshore renewables at sea. An important element here is cross-border cooperation, especially at sea basin level, in terms of grid, but also in terms of assessing cumulative environmental impacts or in monitoring data. So there we will continue to facilitate cross-border cooperation so that we can develop a common approach and pilot projects on MSP at sea basin level. Some sea basins have already started to reflect on long-term implications. For example, the North Sea Energy Corporation, which have a specific support group working on building a long-term vision for MSP in the North Sea. But we want to support such an approach in all sea basins, not just the North Sea, because if we look towards 2050, no sea basin will remain spared. We will need the offshore energy wherever we can get it. So I come to multi-use because the space is limited. Coexistence at sea is not only possible, but it's also highly beneficial for all users, for users from all sectors, because you can reduce costs and you will bring down the climate and environmental footprint of each sector's activities. There are some good examples of multi-use of offshore wind farms and aquaculture that we see in several member states. And we want to support further advanced research and technologies that will make such things possible. So I would encourage the coalition also to look at the potential for multi-use across the EU and between different types of sea users. There I would like to seize the opportunity to recommend inviting more organizations of sea users to participate in the coalition. For example, fisheries or aquaculture sectors representatives might have interesting views to bring to the discussion. The same is true for representatives of the ocean energy, the wave and the tidal sector. In any event, I wish the coalition a good start and a fruitful work. From DG Mare, we are very much looking forward to be kept informed and involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. And now let me invite Laura to take the microphone and the stage.
Good afternoon now. So it's a real pleasure to come and be with you today. It's a very last minute decisions, and I do like surprises like this because there's lots of familiar face around. So it's a really pleasure. As you saw and you already mentioned with most of the speakers, we are coming with our strategy this week, Thursday, and it's a very promising route that we are engaging in. It's been the result of a very long consultation with many stakeholders, many sectors, many actors from the maritime side, but not only, also from inland, where the chain production for renewables and the infrastructure are produced. So we have a main goal of increasing our renewable energy system in the future, and this is one of the main promising routes. But of course, in providing for this integration and this energy system integration that we are promoting at EU level, we also need to make sure that we get things right. And as Veronica mentioned, it has to be fast, but also very well taken care of our environment. And I'm pretty happy that this guidance on the nature legislation is coming out at the same time. So on our side, what we are focusing on several paths. We are focusing on first objectives. They are not binding objectives, but of course we want to align to our 2030 and 2050 renewables targets and look for the increase of offshore renewables. We are also looking at all sea basins, and that's a very important request and quest from all our member states, but also the sectors. We need to grow in scale everywhere. We need to grow in all sea basins with different technologies, not only wind, but floating wind, solar, and ocean energy are really promising. And in doing so, we are looking at, of course, the specificities and the potential of all of them, but also at the investment need. And finally, we are looking at the grid, because without the grid, as you said before, we don't manage to build the scale up. And on our strategy will also be very much aligned and looking at how to improve, how to provide investment, but also how to bring legal certainty for increase of the green. So it's a long-term planning. It's also pushing for the member states to look at long-term coordination, and all this needs to be strengthened. As Felix mentioned, multi-use are quite prominent. The maritime spatial planning is a full part of the strategy, but also what we will do with our Trans-European network and our funds available for the future. So we are looking at the different parts. What is really important that we need projects. We don't have enough in the pipeline. So we need a large-scale project, hybrid project. We need to convince all our players that there is something to gain out of this. And finally, the international scenery is also changing, and we are very positive on lots of interest from our third country partners, like-minded countries, but also we have, as an industry in Europe, and Ørsted is there very well represented, to bring our leadership, our companies as a forefront. So the strategy is looking at all this together. I hope you will enjoy the reading when it comes out, and we can, of course, discuss at a later stage.
Thank you very much, Laura. And while all the speakers now put on their camera, and you too, Laura, to have an interaction, I would like to mention a couple of things that I heard, and I hope they stimulate a conversation. First of all, Ariel suggested that we invite authorities to be part in the coalition, and then others, Felix, especially to invite other users of the marine environment. So let me be clear on this. We do want to invite everybody. Everybody that is ready to work together. Working together is not easy because everyone is tempted to defend what I call their own little garden. But the reality is that this energy transition and the wealth of our planet can only be done if we pool all our resources and our knowledge. So please do pass the word about this coalition. We do have an open door approach, but the memorandum of understanding that these founding members have signed is the frame in which we can work together. Over time, we may change that, but for the time being, at least for the next 12 months, we know what are our guiding questions that will form the base of our work. There are other things that have been mentioned, cross-border cooperation. I see that from a political point of view, cross-border cooperation can be more difficult than from an industry or an environmental point of view. We as the coalition, we don't need to bother about difficulties between one country and the other. We have a clear position. So let's stick to that and find bridges, because that's what we need. So now, some of the founding members or some of the respondents do have questions to each other. Otherwise, I have to ask questions. It's never good.
Okay.
Giles.
I was about to ask for the floor, in fact. Antonella, yes. Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues in the Commission, for your invaluable observations. Felix, it's very good to hear you talking about multiple use. Yes, the more, the better. And there are already positive examples of offshore wind supporting aquaculture and seabed restoration. So thank you for mentioning that. Veronica, yes, it's very good that the Commission is adopting in parallel to the strategy this week the new guidance on how to deliver offshore wind in line with the Habitats and Birds directives. And Wind Europe and the industry have been working closely with you and your colleagues on the development of that guidance. And it's very good that you're giving new clarity to national governments on how to apply the directives in respect of wind energy. Law, yes, what you say about all sea basins, Felix said exactly the same thing. Very important. Offshore wind is now a whole Europe affair. It's not just a North Sea affair. In fact, the industry estimate that by 2050, the North Sea will account for less than 1/2 of all of the offshore wind that we will have across Europe. There will be offshore wind in the Atlantic, in the Mediterranean, in the Black Sea as well. Laura, you say we need projects. Yes, I mean, you are absolutely right. There is a need for new projects to come forward. In conventional bottom-fixed offshore wind, there is a very strong pipeline of projects. If you look at the commitments national governments have made for 2030, there's over 110
Giles, this
gigawatts.
is not a conversation. This is
I am sorry, forgive me. Yes. Let me close by saying, Laura, you can count on the industry to give you a very healthy pipeline of projects.
Okay, so that was, before I give you the word to Gerald, I don't see Antonia. And actually, I would like to see Antonia, because I would like all of you to reflect on the fact that anything that is done offshore needs also a dry element, a landing element, because we are talking about developing massive amount of electricity and energy at sea, but this has to somehow be transported where it is needed. And are you ready for that? Both from the environmental side, but also from the project developer side. There are huge challenges that need to be addressed. It's not that I want to make life more complicated, but the reality is that if we don't do it at the same time, we will not be successful. Now, Gerald, you put your hand up, and you, of course, know what does it mean, the dry part, but then I really would like to hear also from Ariel and Antonia, where opposition on the ground is so strong.
Actually, I had a question, but it reflects on that. From my perspective, the system will only work with international cooperation, and not only in water, but also on land to interconnect the countries. And it will also only work with cooperation also on the policy level. Because if you have different policies across Europe, this is very difficult to cooperate. And my question to the panelists here is, what can we all contribute to make this happen? From a TSO side and NSOE member, I said joint planning is extremely important to use scarce resources, but what other things are there?
So who wants to go next? Antonia.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really important to have a stakeholder consultation. We understand the challenge that it can take time. So, but in the same time is where, you know, offshore wind projects are becoming really legitimate and really, you know, accepted by the population and everything. So I think, yeah, we need to find policy to not create burden, EU policies for everyone, to have a minimum of participation. And also because often stakeholders know a lot about the ecosystem and the marine environment because they use it. So I think we really need dialogue. I think we're also missing a lot of data. And, you know, we're just at the beginning of our marine spatial planning in the EU discussion that will happen in 2021. So yeah, we really count on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to take Ulrich and Ariel and then give some final words to our official speakers. I mean, they are all officials, but Veronica, Felix, and Law, and as you want to come in. But Ulrich, briefly, and then Ariel on the nature side, and then the other three.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also to our colleagues from the Commission, not least. Listening to this and thinking about the conversations that we have had in the coalition so far, on one hand, it strikes me that of course this is it is a busy environment in the ocean, and on the other hand, we do not have much time. We only have 30 years. And sometimes we speak of the offshore wind industry as if it is a very robust and huge endeavor. But as Giles and others mentioned, it's actually only in a very thin beginning. It's actually a quite fragile setup. So it strikes me on that what I think we can all do, and not least also colleagues from the Commission towards your colleagues nationally, is that to the extent that we don't have to act on lack of knowledge, that should be the focus, to gather the information, gather the data, gather the experiences that we have made, so that one country can benefit from things that have happened in a different country. I think that is the first obvious place to look for all of us, gathering the data and sharing it to try at least to limit the darkness, limit the the precautionary measures that we have to take because we don't have the information, because we have a lot of information. That was why my remark, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Ariel.
Yes, I mean, I would just make a plea to given that we have commission colleagues here, one thing where you can help the environment, but also the industry, is by making sure that member states actually do their job when it comes to environmental legislation. At the moment, we have Natura 2000 sites that have not yet been designated. We have species monitoring, which should be mandatory under the Birds Directive, that is not happening. All sorts of rather sloppy approaches to enforcing EU legislation. It might seem that allowing that sloppiness to go on is a favor to the industry. I think we have seen on land and we have seen in other sectors that it is not. So the faster authorities do their job and the more you put the industry in a situation of clarity where they understand where they can go, where they cannot go, what data indeed is there, and then it will be easier for the industry to behave responsibly, and it will be easier for NGOs such as ours to also stick our neck out and say yes to development, which we know is not easy, and there are people out there that are spending a lot of money whipping up opposition to the energy transition. But they prey on bad practice. So slamming the door on bad practice and creating the infrastructure needed for good practice are the best allies that we have if we want to really see this sort of very bold development going forward rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm afraid that time is short. So Alfred, we take for granted that your data that you are collecting will be available for the coalition. And I pass the word. I started with Laure, that was the last one before, and now we put her first for some concluding words.
Thank you very much. It's been a nice way to jump in the topic and hear from different views. So it's really good. And I liked very much the idea of having international cooperation. That's also what we are trying to bring in strongly in the strategy, and also to help member states to use practice in terms of template, what kind of cooperation has been done in the past in certain projects, how to use those kind of templates or memorandum in other regions and other projects. So I think that's an important element. I can only agree on sharing best practice and avoid bad practice by full implementation of the legislation. I think our colleagues and Veronica will confirm are extremely busy in the environment to make sure that the legislation is applied. It's the first condition, of course, but then best practice are also very much useful to share. But you will see in the strategy, we try to bring member states together to go for the international cooperation.
So we do have a good practice of the year award, and maybe we should create an offshore category and see many, many applications. Veronica, now to you.
Grazie mille. Very briefly, just to say, count on us to continue to put maximum efforts into securing a better implementation of the EU environmental acquis, but we will need the NGOs like you fully on board. And I would say also the good part of the industry. I mean, you all have right to please also secure that the implementation becomes much more dynamic at national level. But more importantly, I also wanted to say, for me, what is beautiful about this strategy that we're discussing together is that you see it brings us really together in so many different policy areas, because we see win-win and potentiality for co-benefit. From an environmental viewpoint, if we get this right, and I underline it, if, we all see the if, first of all, I see enormous co-benefit for our zero pollution ambition, which has to be seen absolutely hand in hand with the climate neutrality ambition, I mean, switching from fossil fuel towards this is potentially a game changer for the air that we breathe and even the water that we drink. But here indeed, again, immediately also a challenge about how we transport all this energy to the land. So how the design must be one that is non-toxic. The circularity of the design, before I was coming here, colleagues are telling me that in the next 5 years, we already have around 14,000 wind blades that have to be decommissioned, of course, also on land. And maybe at the time, we have not always conceived them in the most, reusable, recyclable manner. So true, a colleague said that there is so much already that has been done, but let's all learn from the things that maybe we have not done perfectly 10 years ago. Now, in the meantime, the research has gone further and we can build better. And this time is not about building back, it's about building more. And we want to do it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Felix, you are my last one today.
What an honor. Thank you. And a burden maybe as well. No, I'm also very pleased to see this because in our maritime policy, which we have since about maybe 10, 12 years in the European Union, the maritime policy has been about bringing people together and bringing different stakeholders together. And now we see that this is happening around a very clear objective, which is to decarbonize our continent in the end. I think that's really a very good thing to see this coalition being the application on the ground of all the theories or the practicalities that we have already launched in the past. I think a lot has been said. We need to scale up. We have spent the last 30 years in having maybe 1/20th of what we have to build in the next 30 years. That is also to echo what Ulrich has said. This is unprecedented and we don't know what will be happening. So that's something we need to collect data and information and monitor on the way, because we are going into an adventure that of which we cannot predict the outcome at the moment. And that's, I think, where it is very important that we work together and everybody is on board.
Thank you very much. And so a couple of final words from my side before we close. To the Commission colleagues, help us to be successful, because we need these type of initiatives to succeed. I want to thank all the founding members for some very painful compromises that we had to go through when writing the Memorandum of Understanding. But although the process was long and painful, I think it gave us the confidence that actually we are ready for these tasks ahead of us. We should never leave the table of the discussion, but always come back with better solution. Of course, we can do it and we have to do it. And finally, let me thank you, some people that have made this launch today with all the work that was necessary possible. So I want to thank Mattia Cecchinato from Wind Europe, who has been working with us very closely, and my colleague, Joanna Maya, that has been really working very hard to make everyone comfortable with this. I will be in touch with all of you. Don't forget, I always keep my promise, and please do help us to succeed. Thanks, and thanks to all the participants. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.